to me, it's just wild what's going on right now in Minnesota with just the amount of craziness.
Before 2 years ago, Minnesota was never even on the radar. And then once the governor became nominated as the presumptive vice presidential nominee, you just keep hearing story after story after story. And I wonder if he had not been the vice presidential nominee, would this have even come up? And so it just makes one wonder.
And this is exactly what is wrong with America right now. One of the biggest issues with America right now is that the people that rightfully are citizens that deserve these benefits and need these benefits, like you and I have talked about. I'm not against social safety nets and social benefit programs or handout
for the ones who need it. Absolutely.
Right. This right here, though, there's none left now. There's nothing left for the legitimate claims.
Do you think there is credence to the idea of people who are running for, I think maybe governor and above, having maybe even senator or even mayor, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud, to the idea would be, should they have some type of necessity to be transparent about their income and their net worth?
From a gross standpoint, it's just how bad the pedophilia problem worldwide and in America is and has been, and how our institutions of both spiritual and entertainment have completely infected those areas and have abused young people, both in the entertainment industry and in the religious, I don't want to say spiritual. Let me back up there, because it's not the spiritual world that's at fault here. It's the organized religions that claim to be doing the good of the communities they serve, but they're just there to get rich. You know, the famous Instagram pastors and all that stuff. Those types of things. So to see the amount of pedophilia that was just brutally in our face and used and then shadowed and then protected under the guise of inclusiveness by our politicians was just disgusting. Like, ugh.
But my number one was the Epstein files. It was that pedophilia is absolutely one of the worst types of violations that a human being could do to another. That the other part of it, which was the reason why I chose the Epstein files as the number one, was because of the lack of accountability that people in power have. And so it's interesting because you talked about your number one being government fiscal responsibility and waste and fraud and abuse and all of those things. It's almost the same thing, because really it's an issue of people who have power and influence not being held accountable for their actions.
We're getting killed trying to make things work, and then we realize that our government officials are working against us. They are. They're working against us, and they're enriching minorities, not minorities. Sorry, let me say this again. They're not enriching minorities. They're enriching minority groups of people that migrate to this country illegally or legally. But then we forget about the people that were here to begin with and are here paying their taxes. So how's that fair? That's how you create that anger that you're talking about, because it's like, dude, you can only take so much. When you look at inflation and when you look at the tariffs and you look at this issue of affordability, it is really hitting a place where the average working class citizen is having a very difficult time to get by. Affordability is not a crisis of one administration. Affordability, and we've talked about this quite extensively, affordability has been brewing, and that we saw that start to brew, especially when you went off the gold standard. We've been on the collision course since then, right? And no one can deny that. But I think what we're seeing right now is seeing a massive shift with cryptocurrencies and digital currencies and blockchains and how transactions are processed. But I think you're starting to see tiers of wealth for the first time in America, where you're starting to really see that being middle class doesn't mean middle class anymore. Wealth is wealth. And still 90% of people don't make six figures, right? Even today, I think that is. I don't know. It might be closer to like 86 or something like that. It might be different now. More, I think, because more people make six figures today than they ever have. But it
doesn't mean the same now. Like, I'll give you a case in point about just the devaluation of the dollar. I bought silver at about it was like $21 an ounce. I just checked. Silver spot price right now is $72.93. It's so important, Chris. I know you would preach this to your people too, which is, it's really important to have diversified types of assets, because if you hold your money in cash, it's just an eroding entity, because of the fact that the valuation of that fiat currency is just going to continue to go down.
It's easy to make wealth today. It's just easy to get involved in something, go on YouTube, do something. So yeah, I think that you're going to see the continuing of wealth creation, but in a lot of different ways, as we start to see new economies be built and new sectors be built, which I think it's very exciting. But at the same time, you're going to see old sectors that are going to die, just like it's sad to see the shopping mall die. But who knows? You might see the shopping mall come back in a massive way because people still want to be together.
And what I don't know is what that's going to look like long term, because, while there may not be short term side effects, if I'm a drug company and I test humans for a year or 2 years before I release the drug, and I don't see necessarily any health impacts, I'm going to say, hey, you might have some dry mouth, some diarrhea, a couple of, aches and pains here, but I can make billions upon billions of dollars. So let's go ahead and get this FDA approved and let's get this moving along. The most important story of 2025 is the potential breakthrough where one can reduce Alzheimer's by reducing the amount of plaque that accumulates in the arteries and in the brain, which could then significantly reduce the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia. I believe that the U.S. is in an arms race with China to become the world's most dominant leader in AI, and the only thing that legislation would do is to slow down that progress. And from the perspective of the technological oligarchs, slowing down the race to AI means that we would end up losing to China, because China could take the technology and use it to hurt us.
Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
Here, and he's with us, and he spent Christmas with us, and he's here, and he put me on to this young guy in Minnesota, I think. The
Minnesota guy, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
I know
already.
Exactly where you're going. That video has as of right now, like over 110 million views.
But it's not even that. There's
10 million, bro.
There's so many more of them.
Well, for the first time tonight, the state is responding to a viral video alleging more fraud in Minnesota, this time daycare fraud. Since it was posted last week, the video has racked up millions of views, even catching the attention of the FBI director. Lou Raguse has the latest on the response from the state.
So this is Quality Learning Center.
A misspelled sign and an apparent lack of anyone inside a licensed childcare center in Minneapolis. Just one stop conservative YouTuber Nick Shirley made in a video viewed over 100 million times on X in an effort to expose fraud among Somali-run childcare centers in Minnesota.
You do realize that there's supposed to be 99 children in here at this building, but there's no one here.
While we have questions about some of the methods that were used in the video, we do take the concerns that the video raises about fraud very seriously.
There's a ton of them. And it's just, to me, it's just wild what's going on right now in Minnesota with just the amount of craziness. And now President Trump is like going to lay down the gauntlet or something like that this morning. Like he's going to take away like something with Somalian like refugees or something. And Ilhan Omar's going nuts. And now she's like, everyone's exposing her for the crack fraud that she is. It's like, what is happening around here?
Man, it's been much fraud that's been revealed there in Minnesota. And that's the hard thing, is when you start off and you do something dumb, and then there's already people from your like group that, might have one or two strikes against them because, maybe their religion and ethnicity and stuff like that. And it's like the good ones that are there, they end up catching all the crap from all of the corruption that's going on around them. And it's like this unfolding layer of saga that's just ridiculous out there, considering the fact that before 2 years ago, Minnesota was never even on the radar. And then once the governor became nominated as the presumptive vice presidential nominee, you just keep hearing story after story after story. And I wonder if he had not been the vice presidential nominee, would this have even come up? And so it just makes one wonder. But I'm really interested. I
think it's the opposite.
What's your perspective?
I think it's the exact opposite.
Really?
I think it's the exact opposite.
Okay. Tell me, what do you mean by that?
That's why I think that's... Look, everyone was so confused on why Kamala picked Tim Walz and didn't pick... what was the other guy's name? Obviously these guys popular. Is it the West Virginia governor? I might have it wrong. I don't think it's West Virginia. Is it the Philadelphia governor? I think it's the governor of Philadelphia. He's like, oh my God, why did they pick him? Why did they pick him? And it all came down to PA's, one of these big swing states, and they picked him. And I'm going, no wonder they picked him, because they needed to pick him, because they knew the chickens were coming home to roost, and they knew people were going to find out about how inept of a
so
CEO.
You think that he was going to be for a pardon so he could get pardoned?
Not even. It's not even for a pardon. It's to keep covering it up, because if he's in power, can you imagine Kamala Harris doing anything regulatory enforcement about any government agency? Look, there's just no way.
This is so interesting.
I mean, and here's the thing. Okay, here's what's sad about it. All right, all jokes aside, because I know we're like laughing about this, but it's not funny. It's absolutely not funny. And we'll talk about this as we get into it, because it's serious. It's not just one program. The same pattern of abuse is in all food stamps, education programs, daycare programs, all of it. You name it. The same scheme goes across all of these government agencies, welfare agencies, handout agencies, whatever you want to call them, social programs. And this is exactly what is wrong with America right now. One of the biggest issues with America right now is that the people that rightfully are citizens that deserve these benefits and need these benefits, like you and I have talked about. I'm not against social safety nets and social benefit programs or handout
for the ones who need it. Absolutely.
Right. This right here, though, there's none left now. There's nothing left for the legitimate claims. It's not a matter of, we got to do something about this and get more funding. No, I'm sorry. We screwed up and we gave it to the wrong people, and there's nothing left for the legitimate people. And it's going to take 2 or 3 economic cycles, meaning years, fiscal cycles, whatever it is for that local municipality, unless the federal government bails it out, which just basically means now the burden of inept government is on the shoulders of those states that did govern correctly with the tax and have deficit, or don't have deficits, but have budget surpluses. So
the thing that concerns me a lot, Chris, is the fact that you have this current idea of how to legislate and how to what degree should our not our safety, but our privacy be impeded upon, because like, for example, if you could take draconian measures to reduce crime, like having people with M16s on every corner and the military coming in to fight crime, then of course the crime rates are going to go down. But the price you pay is the feeling that you're not free and that you can't move about and that you're living in a police state. Crime would go down, but that's too high of a price to pay. And then my concern is with all of this fraud and abuse that's taking place, it's only going to create an opportunity for more AI and different types of mechanisms to oversee different processes, and then more hurdles to jump and all of these things. So instead of things happening much more quickly and efficiently, you're going to have all of these executive and legislative and procedural hurdles that we're going to have to jump over just to get help to the people who actually legitimately need it, because of these dopes that are taking advantage of circumstances and raking in all these incomes. Because I had an opportunity to see a couple of the clips from that guy, and he was very nicely, very calmly walking around and saying, hey, I noticed there's not any kids around, I'd like to ask you some questions, and door after door was slammed on him just for asking a very simple question, which is, where are the kids? You're here for a daycare. Mm-hmm. I don't see one kid around here. What the heck's going on? And to your point, it's not only just in that area. You can start to see it unravel in all of these other areas. And once the investigation's done, regardless of how it turns out, either the governor was grossly negligent and a part of it, because there's some people who are theorizing that perhaps he did it because you have a segment of the Somalian population that's taking some of the funding, sending it back home to provide funding for different nefarious activities that's happening in Somalia. And in return, they vote for the governor and he turns a blind eye to all of this. That's the allegation. Of course, that's a theory. It's a big conspiracy theory, but I am all for doing all of the necessary legitimate investigations to get down to the truth, because at the end of the day, the real people that are hurt are the ones who really need it. And instead, you have a few people becoming fat cats and living off the teats of all of the harm that came as a result of COVID.
I don't think it's an issue where we haven't seen something like this solved already. The problem has already been solved. The private sector solves these types of problems every day. The problem is it's government. It's government.
Yes.
And the thing is that government is always going to lead with an emotional hand, not a pragmatic hand, because the government, we have to be emotion. We have to be everything to everybody. And that's the problem. So, yeah, I think Tim Walz knew about it. I think this is all part of their thing. I think they all know it. Ilhan Omar's in on it. They've all congressional reps are on it. They all got wealthy. Every single one of these people is 10x wealthier today than they were pre-COVID, pre-2019, pre-2020, pre-whatever. They're all wealthier. Even all of them, they're all wealthier, and that's a direct result as of all of this. But I know I don't want to get
I got a question for you about the wealth part.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about this because I think it's important, because I certainly, we have a lot of other things that we're going to be talking about, considering that this will be the last episode before the beginning of next year. But do you think there is credence to the idea of people who are running for, I think maybe governor and above, having maybe even senator, or even mayor, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud, to the idea would be, should they have some type of necessity to be transparent about their income and their net worth? Because to me, when you look at campaign finance and when you look at the idea of these people that are in government getting so rich off of just the idea of being a legislator, I find that real problematic. And I think there should be some types of legislation to say, look, if you want to be in office, you got to be very transparent about this. What are your thoughts about that?
There definitely has to be some blockades in there or something in place there. And this was an article that came about Debbie Schultz. I think that's her name, Debbie Schultz, the DNC chair or something to that effect. She's and they followed her stock trades, and it was specifically had to do with her purchasing a ton of stock or equity, investing basically in a mining company. And then all of a sudden 6 months later, there's contracts that are favorable to that company, and all of a sudden that stock goes up like 150%, something crazy, right? And it's like, that's so obvious. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have apps on the App Store now that are legitimately track congressional stock portfolios that are beating hedge funds. Like, how is this happening? Why? Because, I mean, all you have to do is look at all of them. You got to look at every single and by the way, this is not just Democrats. This is everybody. It's a total sham. But that's
not every one of them, but on both sides, it's
almost all of them.
Rampant.
Almost all, not all of them, but a lot of them. But what most people don't realize is that when you see that, that in term limits is one of the biggest things. Now, I don't know the best way to solve that because it's like, damn, that's like private business. It's how that mixes. But just in case, I mean, Polymarket is like is giving a 4% chance that Tim Walz gets in trouble for all this crap that's going on in his state. Just like, I mean, and we're going to get into a lot about what we're talking about right now, but I don't want to lose my train of thought. But reality is that nobody will ever be held accountable for it. And yes, there needs to be some type of blockage or stoppage there. I just don't know how to do it because you see people constantly getting enriched and constantly becoming wealthy because of it. And Ilhan Omar is one of them. I mean, she's worth, some estimates say, somewhere around $30 million. Who even knows, right? And she's how did she bring that much enterprise value or market value in that short amount of time? What did she do that was so valuable?
Yes, the only way that could happen would be, people would know what her business was. People would know if you go from whatever she was to $30 million, people know how you make your money. Like, for example,
right.
I had a major issue with the fact that Trump didn't disclose his taxes and things like that. But I wasn't like losing sleep over it. I wouldn't say that should have stopped him from being the president. My only issue with that was on principle, which is, look, if you're a public official, especially running for the president of the United States, your income and how you get it should be a public document, because once you get into office, the position of the office should not be a way, like your primary mechanism to gain wealth. So, and if we uncover the fact that, okay, he's smart with his taxes and he found all the loopholes, if the loopholes are there and he exercised them, good for him. He's smart. It's fine with that. I'm fine with that.
I don't necessarily think that that's the issue. I think he would have disclosed them. I just think that because of the way he does business, those optics are already skewed in a negative way or in a negative light. Like, oh, look at these guys, they never pay taxes. So no matter how, I think it was just basic political. That's one of the issues with Trump is that, it's one of his strengths, but one of his weaknesses is that once Trump makes a stance, he doesn't change the stance. He doesn't adjust it based on how the weather is, right? So if the weather is fair to that stance, he's going to have it. If the weather is shitty to that stance, he's still going to have it. And that's the thing about Trump that nobody can deny. He's the same today as he is going to be tomorrow. Now, the downside to that is that, yes, he doesn't change his position based on the weather, so he ought to change certain stuff based on you get what I mean, to make it more favorable, and he just doesn't. So in any light, he's going to be casted as. So his stance was just deny, and that's always been his stance. Don't say anything that could be politically damaging to you factually. Now, he doesn't care about the scandal. The fact that his name's being brought up in a negative light or a positive light doesn't really matter, because news is news. Anything is good as long as you're being talked about. But he doesn't ever want the concrete stuff there. So to a fault, he takes that position to a fault all the time. And that's what you see here, because no matter what, he's going to be painted in a negative light because how he does his taxes. He should have just came out and said it. Hey, look, I take advantage of all the loopholes, but no matter what, that's never going to be favorable, because the average person doesn't understand. But everybody knows it.
It's like, one of those things that people knows. Like, people knew that he was a womanizer. Yeah. And, if you're,
it's not surprising when you see these pictures of him.
Exactly. And to me, for him, he's an as is it kind of a person. And the issue that I had, not only did he not disclose it, he said that he was going to disclose his taxes, and he never did that. And so to me, as the president, that just makes me wonder, like, to what degree should we believe your word? But I don't want to make this about Trump, because really it's not. The issue really is about transparency, financial transparency among people who are elected officials, because the difference between a full-on democracy and a republic is that we have to trust in representatives to represent our best interest. We vote people into office to reflect our views and our values and our desires from a legislative perspective. And if we can't trust the people who get in office to reflect our views, then what in the world? Then that puts the republic at a disadvantage, and it puts it at peril because of the fact that we can't trust. And once trust is eroded, then you start to question everything, even in situations where you shouldn't question it. So going back to this whole Minnesota thing before we put it to bed.
Let me ask you this real quick before we bring back Minnesota, because it's just a different way to look at it.
Okay.
Is that really that bad with Trump not being transparent up front like that, or hiding it? Is it really that bad versus what we get from the other side, which is, oh yeah, here's all my stuff, take a look at it, and then we never see it again because they're like, oh, they trust me now, and then they end up becoming multimillionaires on the back end, but we never look about how they became 10x wealthier after they showed us everything. Do you get what I mean? Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying.
What's worse? What's worse? Because we know
I see
he's
it
going to make
as
money.
Two sides of the same coin. It's the same. It's the same to me.
Here's my hypothesis on it. Why do you want to do it? Here's my hypothesis.
Okay.
When you take away, everyone's got something that makes them powerful, right, Len? You do, I do, everybody does. For a lot of men, it's money. If they have money, then that's their source of power, to which all flows from. With Trump, it's money. It's his branding and his money, and everything's built upon. Always about how rich Trump's in. Maybe this guy was so freaking flat, dead broke, he didn't want anybody to know how broke he was, because if he did, no one would elect him, whether you were a fan or not. So who knows? I think he was dead ass broke again, and he's like, dude, like, pull up, like that bad boy was about to go. It was about to go. I mean, how many legal fights, legal battles set he wasn't sanctioned in the sense he was sanctioned, but he was sanctioned to the hardest he could possibly. Say what anyone wants to say, whether you like him or not. That human being has been put through a lot with investigations and stress, whether it's self-reduced or not. Like he did. But you gotta admire, like, bro, you've been investigated, probed, indicted, impeached. Like, you gotta look at him and go, there's nothing that stops him. Just let him do what he wants to do at this
Teflon.
point. Sorry, go back.
That's why they call him
to
Teflon
Minnesota.
Don.
Does he have a stake in DuPont?
Yeah.
Is it Donald J. DuPont Trump or what? Like something like
Teflon, that? Right. You think that's for sure, considering how much he's gone through
back to Minnesota,
and come out smelling like a rose. Yes. I think, what do you think, speaking of Minnesota, what do you think is going to ultimately happen once all of the investigations have taken place and it all starts to bubble up? How do you see this playing out?
I think it's going to get real ugly. I think it's just going to get ugly because I think that I was talking to a few people this morning, and I said, look, this is exactly one of the main reasons why I think Elon Musk had to bail so fast on this, is because he looked at it and went, like he knows. He looked at it and went, and that's why he said, you can't fix the government. You can't fix it. Look. If this, when you're building a business and you're at the beginning and you're getting your systems right, and then you notice an error in accounting and you go, ooh, I got to fix this right now while we're small, because we can fix it small, because if we don't fix it small when we have volume, that's when it becomes a catastrophe. I think that's where we're at with government right now, where it's so big and so deep that we're seeing $1.9 million worth of fraud and $2 million worth of fraud and $1.8 billion worth of fraud. And in California, I don't know, what are you guys up to so far for last year? Between the homeless money that's lost and the environmental, what are you guys at? 40? 74 billion? Hey, just throw another log on the fire, right? Like at this point, if it's that big, there's so many $100 frauds and $1,000 frauds going on right now that it's just it's going to get ugly. And this is exactly what I was preparing for to talk about today as one of the outlooks or one of the things, because I know we have a special thing that agenda that we're going for today. I just think it's going to get ugly. Because it's not just one program, Len. It's all the social safety net programs in Minnesota or Michigan have been completely taken advantage of. And I don't.
I think that.
It's when you see it across all of them. How it's like oh, you have liver failure and kidney failure and heart failure and lung failure and intestinal failure. Where do you start?
Exactly. It's like the entire body is terminally ill and there's no way out of it. And the thing that's great for Elon, from Elon's perspective, is I've got complete freedom to engage or disengage in any way, shape, or form, because I have that type of money that allows me to do that. And I think a lot of times what happens is, and also he wasn't elected to office, so he was there on his free will. And I think he saw how deep and murky the swamp was and decided, you know what? I'm exiting stage left. This is just ridiculous. And so, with regard to Minnesota, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. I think Walz is going to be elected out of office. I think Ilhan Omar is going to be elected out of office. And I hope they bring some folks. Yeah. And I think if everything turns out to be true, because, for me, again, I don't want to rush to judgment, but if everything turns out to be true, they could be facing some indictments potentially, and who knows how far it goes. I think other people will become the scapegoats and end up in jail and find a way for them to get out and have some sweetheart deals on the side with some of that fraud money they have set aside. But I think it's ugly, man. So I really wanted to take this time, Chris, man, as we transition, to really take a look at the entire year in review, because it's the last podcast of the year. So we're almost in 2026, and there've been so many different stories, man. So many different stories, and I'm really interested to hear what your take was, because obviously this podcast is done by two people who have differing points of view as it relates to our politics, but we have some similarities with our family values and economic outlooks and business and things like that. But I'm really curious to hear, because I want to get a sense of what's in your head about what's the most important topic in those three areas. So, because we pretty much talk about current events, we talk about health, and we talk about financial wellness, economics, and things like that, given our background. So I'll start off with you, and then we can just go back and forth. So as it relates to, you want to start off with current events? You want to do health first, or do you want to do wealth and economics first?
I think we could just start off with current events, just simply because we're talking about Minnesota already, and I think it just kind of goes into that. So, but for me, with current events, and I'm curious to know where you're at with this too, because I was thinking, I was like, okay, how's Len going to bring this today? And your friends have been quiet.
We haven't talked about this at all, so we get to react in real time. So I'm excited.
Here's the thing, okay? Current events, and the biggest thing for me that I think is starting to happen right now, and you're really starting to see this, especially after I don't know what the kid's name, I keep forgetting. He's huge, but was it Shirley, right? The kid that's doing this stuff in Minnesota. He's like 23 or 24.
23 right? years old, yeah.
Okay, this is exactly what we've been talking about. I think that this is a massive wake-up call, and this just goes in hand with what I think is the fleecing of American sovereignty right here. And we're allowing right
Explain.
now, what we're allowing right now is just people are going to start to see this, and it's just if there is no like ramifications for those who were governing these types of situations, like because you're seeing it everywhere. I mean, the lady in who's the $5 million worth of fraud. I can't remember her name right now. In Texas, the African American Democratic lady. She was just got charged with the $5 million worth of campaign finance fraud. You're just seeing it everywhere.
Talking about Jasmine Crockett? It's not her, is it?
Yes, it is Crockett. I think it is Crockett.
Okay.
She just got, yeah, I think it is Crockett. Right. I think it's her. Just got charged with the $5 million for the campaign fraud or something to that effect. You're seeing it everywhere. You're seeing it in California. You're seeing it in Michigan. You're seeing it in Texas. You're seeing it everywhere in these democratic places where the waste, fraud, and abuse are happening, and they're enriching their lives. So you're seeing the fleecing of the American sovereign wealth. It's being fleeced, and everyone's going like this right now, going, this is where all of our money's been going. Now, obviously, this isn't the only problem. We know inflation's high. We know we've been printing money. We know all that. But this has made it worse. And we're seeing all the abuse, and we're seeing these candidates get elected with this abuse money, this paid for campaigns at the expense of taxpayers. So I think that is number one, is you're going to start to see people wake up and go, wait a minute. So I definitely think we're going to see government accountability is going to really start to go up, especially in 2026, looking back at all the crap that's, because 2025 was the year of showing, like really, 2025 was the year of the emperor's new clothes, so to speak, right? Like we were getting a colonoscopy and an endoscopy on everything, and people are starting to see it. They're waking up and going, dude, we've been getting fleeced here for a long time, for a very long time. And then I also think that as far as current events, the most important things that are happening right now is that I think is just from a gross standpoint is just how bad the pedophilia problem worldwide and in America is and has been, and how our institutions of both spiritual and entertainment have completely infected those areas and have abused young people, both in the entertainment industry and in the religious, I don't want to say spiritual, let me back up there, because it's not the spiritual world that's at fault here. It's the organized religions that claim to be doing the good of the communities they serve, but they're just there to get rich. You know, the famous Instagram pastors and all that stuff. Those types of things. So to see the amount of pedophilia that was just brutally in our face and used and then shadowed and then protected under the guise of inclusiveness by our politicians was just disgusting. Like, ugh. Right, to see that, and then obviously the AI rise, and I think just the AI rise happened so fast in 2025, and it's put it front and center. I think those are probably the most. And think about it. We did, going back to the pedophilia stuff. We didn't just see, the pedophilia stuff happen. We had an Epstein and a P Diddy going on at the same time. We had a white guy and a African American guy, like just both sides of it, just to close that up and make it so how gross it is. But the AI stuff to me is exciting, not in a sense of where people lose their jobs, because that happens when innovation happens, but to see how fresh and how exciting something can be, and how both from a capitalistic standpoint, a technology standpoint, and also from a human efficiency standpoint, because if you do put AI to work on this crap that's going on in Michigan and really have a program and software written to be good for to be an auditor for people, yes, that's where AI does well, because AI would have caught this a long time ago and put the patterns together and went, all these daycare businesses are fraudulent and they're all owned by Somalians. It doesn't take a genius to recognize that pattern. That's where I go back and I go, that was deliberately overlooked to buy votes. No doubt about it, to get votes. But those, I think, are the most important things. And I think that going back to what you said, Len, I really do think people are going to be held accountable for it. Because if they don't, that's where you'll see some Civil War riot stuff. Because if I'm a guy who's 28, 29, 30, and I'm in Minnesota, and I'm working my tail off and doing everything right, and then all of a sudden this crap's happening and I can't afford Christmas, ooh, baby, that's some heat right there that you don't want to mess with. And that's exactly where you get into some dangerous stuff, Because then you see these, like this guy, social media, he just got arrested or whatever, Somalian guy, all over social media going, go ahead, white boy, go back to work and work for me. I get everything for free. You seen these videos on TikTok? It's crazy.
I haven't.
That make a mofo psychotic. Crazy. Especially if they don't have children, because men get crazy when they don't have kids.
I think on Twitter you could definitely find instances that would make anybody's skin crawl, just because there's so many crazy people out there. And I think the danger is taking 2 or 3 incidents or 10 or 12 incidents and making it representative of the whole, but it still doesn't take away the maddening aspect of that. So here's my question to you. So you mentioned AI, you mentioned Epstein, kind of indirectly, and then you mentioned this idea of waste, fraud, and abuse. If you had to choose one, and you could only choose one as the most important topic of 2025, which of those would it be?
I just would have to say that it is the absolute disgrace that is how our government's being ran right now fiscally. It's just a disgrace, and we're all paying the price for it. Because all of these things go back down to the bottom line. If the country's broke, we can't invest in things to fix this stuff, because we're spending dollars to fix dollars that we deliberately spent to break stuff, and that's what's allowing the rise to all this stuff. Now, pedophilia is going to be there. AI is going to rise up, all this stuff. But I think it's look, if we don't get you know it already, Len, we've talked about it. If we don't get our fiscal house in order as a country, we're toast. And that's really what's killing us. That's why you see all this stuff prevailing right now. Bigger than AI, bigger than all of this stuff. Yeah, and I think we might have talked about this, Len. If we had not advanced as much as we had as a society, right, and we kept the balances on tech, and we were stayed a little bit more the way we were in the 80s, maybe in the 70s and the 60s, yeah, we might not be as wealthy and might not have as much progress as far as scientifically, but we'd probably be a lot more happy and a lot more stable as a society and as a race, I think, anyways. Because we've just gotten so fast where the brakes are so off this thing, right? Like, because if we don't get a control of the money, then that ultimately leads to collapse, and we know that. We've seen that in history. We've seen it. The last time we saw a collapse this big, it was the Roman Empire, and look what happened. Look what happened when the Roman Empire collapsed. It was craziness all over the world, right? So, yeah, definitely that's the problem right now, is the biggest thing, I think. And I think we saw it. I don't know if we saw it too late, but we definitely went, oh my God, it is as bad as we think it is. When the smartest man in the world looks at it and goes, it can't be fixed, you definitely got some problems.
For me, it's interesting the angle you took, because my number one was, you mentioned it, but my number one was the Epstein files. It was that pedophilia is absolutely one of the worst types of violations that a human being could do to another. The other part of it, which was the reason why I chose the Epstein files as the number one, was because of the lack of accountability that people in power have. And so it's interesting, because you talked about your number one being government fiscal responsibility and waste and fraud and abuse and all of those things. It's almost the same thing, because really it's an issue of people who have power and influence not being held accountable for their actions. And the result of that lack of accountability is this erosion of trust. And the only thing that makes America great is that there's this sense of trust that people have in the government. But what's been happening is, I would say over the last 20 years in particular, that erosion has been gradual, but I think what's happening is the erosion is becoming more accelerated. And when that acceleration of erosion happens, it gets to a point where we can't even trust what's happening. And so when you go from distrust to skepticism, I think we're in the skepticism phase, but it could get to cynicism. Once you get to cynicism, a person could be telling you that absolute truth, but you think it's a lie because everybody else and the 100 people before you told me something similar. Why should I believe you? And I believe that once the population and the United States citizenry is cynical about the leaders they have in a republic, we run a very dangerous risk of civil war, civil unrest, a lot of protests, and then when you look at also Gen Z and their lack of hope, when you lose hope, you have nothing to lose. Because think about it, we've talked about this on our previous episodes, that Gen Z is the first generation that really has no positive outlook as it relates to their economic prosperity. The reason why people chose to come to America was this hope that they could prosper economically. And so when you have people who've been born here, who have every opportunity to excel, not having a real opportunity that they saw their own parents have, it really starts to create this whole degradation of the quality of our society. And I'll leave off with this because I was watching something a little earlier today, and it was this special about how teachers are feeling so hopeless because when they listen to their students, especially post-COVID, there's this sentiment amongst them that, why am I here? Like, why am I learning math? Because I can get the answers from ChatGPT. Why am I writing this paper when I can say the words and put it into a program and it can spit out an entire report for me? Why do I need to think for myself? Because I just need to have the semblance of a thought, and this tool can help complete my thoughts. And so now when you don't have this muscle of your brain called cognition and critical thinking, and that stuff isn't exercised, then now the whole infrastructure starts to die down, starts to break down. So while I'm excited about AI like you are, I'm really concerned about just this entire sense of this almost despair that we're starting to sense across the country. And so the Epstein files in my mind is just a symbol of the lack of accountability that creates this trickle down effect of concern and lack of trust and despair that we're experiencing.
It's interesting when you talk about that because we're in a lot of similar pages here, and I know you said a lot there, and I want to kind of jump in on a few of these things to kind of make the points there. Look, we're getting killed by, and it's exactly what you're saying. We're getting killed trying to make things work, and then we realize that our government officials are working against us. They are. They're working against us, and they're enriching minorities, not minorities. Sorry, let me say this again. They're not enriching minorities. They're enriching minority groups of people that migrate to this country illegally or legally, but then we forget about the people that were here to begin with and are here paying their taxes. So how is that fair? That's how you create that anger that you're talking about, because it's like, dude, you can only take so much. And that's where people go, I'm not against immigration. I'm just against allowing swaths of people to come in here and take advantage of the system. And that's exactly what you've seen. Then you see, the pedophilia and the Epstein stuff, right? And then you see the AI stuff. What do they all have in common? Everyone's going, oh my gosh, all these things are about what? The abuse and the taking of the working people or of the everyday person in the world, right? We just keep getting abused. The little guys keep getting abused. The powers that be, the wealthy get wealthy, right? But what we're seeing here, when you tie this all together, it's not. And then, of course, the classic Uno reverse is getting pulled on everybody right now. And what's that Uno reverse? Oh, this is exactly why you need socialism, because we need to take care of you because capitalism has failed you so much, right? And we blame capitalism, but really, it's not capitalism's fault. This is what you're seeing right now is what's called corporatism. That's what we're all seeing. Corporatism. We're seeing corporatism. And what is corporatism? When the government gets in bed with private business. And we've seen this happen. And you're right, Len, you said 20, 25 years over the last 20, 25 years. Well, when did we start to see it just get outrageously insane? In the early 2000s with the dot-com bailouts, then the bank bailouts, right? Then the COVID bailouts. Like, the government is just so heavily involved now in private business. We've allowed politicians to get rich because we've allowed corporatism to take over. And corporatism is killing capitalism and making socialism popular again. Because you have to have an enemy and you have to, that's the solution. And this is the Uno reverse that happens all the time. But if people would really truly understand, right, what Marxism is and and all that is, you'd really understand that it is not a belief system of care for people. It's a belief system, non-Christian values, that you are better, that the one person has your best interest in mind, and this collective group of ultra realistic people are going to make decisions for everybody, and the collective makes the decisions. But the problem is that there isn't a ultra realistic being on earth ever that can make those decisions and go, I'm going to make a decision today and not be selfish. Good luck. Not a human being exists in the world that's going to go, I'm going to make an unselfish decision today. Yeah, we have fleeting moments where we're selfless. Of course, some more than others, but that's why the Constitution is so genius. Because again, the Constitution governs human nature. And socialism and communism are just there for those who really don't want to get up off their ass and work. So just call a spade a spade. You're lazy, you don't want to work. And I get that. Yeah. Everyone's like that. But yeah, everything is about taking from somebody right now. But on the wealth side of things, if you want to switch gears for the biggest news, what is your biggest news, Len, or what do you think is the biggest thing that happened in wealth or money this year?
So I would say that rising costs have been a continuation of various administrations. So I don't want to pin it all on Trump. What I will say is that when you look at inflation and when you look at the tariffs and you look at this issue of affordability, it is really hitting a place where the average working class citizen is having a very difficult time to get by. And I think that it's a convergence of all of these different variables that you talked about earlier. One, this corporate greed. Two, this idea that with, going back to the tariffs is a tax on everyday people because the cost of goods and services being shipped here doesn't necessarily increase the incentives to manufacture here locally because that ship has sailed. So what happens is that those costs pass down to the everyday consumer. And so I believe that the affordability issue has been a long-standing issue for different administrations. I just think that the tariffs have added more fuel to that fire to make things less affordable. Now, you'll hear people from the other side that's pro-tariff and pro-Trump say, hey, well, right now interest rates have gone down and we've had more people with, costs are coming down for eggs and gas and things like that. And all of that's true. But if you look net in terms of just the cost for housing, the cost for eating out, the cost for groceries, all of those are getting to a point where it's a breaking point when you add in insurance and all of that stuff just to maintain a house and all of these things. People feel less financially capable, especially when you have a 2-parent household that's both going to work, and they're still struggling to get by. And then we have this next generation of kids that are coming up, going to high school and going to college and not really having a favorable outlook from when they retire, for when they graduate. So I would say for me, the number one issue overall, if I were to sum it to one word as it relates to health, as it relates to finances, affordability.
So to answer your question, Len, I think that as you were asking me, or in regards to what wealth has changed, and you were stopping or dropping off with affordability, I think again, affordability is not a crisis of one administration. Affordability, and we've talked about this quite extensively. Affordability has been brewing, and that we saw that start to brew, especially when you went off the gold standard. We've been on the collision course since then, right? And no one can deny that. But I think what we're seeing right now is seeing a massive shift with cryptocurrencies and digital currencies and blockchains and how transactions are processed. But I think you're starting to see tiers of wealth for the first time in America, where you're starting to really see that being middle class doesn't mean middle class anymore. Like for example, if you're in California, middle class is not middle class in Texas or Tennessee or you get what I mean? So that has changed a lot. You're starting to see those different tiers based on what state you live in. And I'll give you my point. Gas is under $3 a gallon for 93 in Texas right now.
That's crazy.
And you just saw Chevron just said, adios, we're leaving California, and ConocoPhillips, which is roughly 22% of the refining capacity in California. So again, and here's the kicker. California can't import gas from any other state because they don't refine it the way California wants it. So good luck come January, February, March, April.
May, they're going to have to go to like Asia and India and bring in dirty crude oil and gas.
Right. So California is such this paradox in that we're so environmentally conscious, yet then we're going to go turn around and buy oil that's dirty from drug lords. It's just so crazy to me, right? So you're starting to see affordability crises. But what I think you're starting to see, and this kind of goes into predictions of next year, so I'm not trying to cut a headline on you, but what you're starting to see right now is you're starting to really, really see that it's not just, things are better in Texas because it's Texas, right? It's not propaganda anymore. What you're starting to see is you're starting to see market dynamics in certain states where it goes, dude, if I go to Texas and I'm making $100,000 a year, it's like I'm making $150,000 a year now. And my wife doesn't have to work anymore in Texas. That's what you're starting to see now. You're starting to see for the first time again, and I don't know, maybe ever since I've lived, where you're actually starting to see a significant difference in change in life, whether you live in a certain state or not. And that's exactly what is going to happen massively in 2020. If we think migration happened last year, good luck. As soon as California starts charging $8 and $9 and $10 for gas, which is going to happen, there's no doubt about it come July. And Newsom is going to skate out of office, term out of office, smelling like roses, trying to get presidentially elected. Good luck, bro. Good luck. So yeah, I think you're starting to see, and going back to what we talked about, Len, you see that in that you see like 22 states, mostly democratically led states, are in active recession right now in the United States, where you see a lot of red states that are in active expansion mode right now. So and states like California that are teetering. So yeah, I think you're spot on with the wealth stuff, with affordability crisis. But what you're going to start to see, I think, is this affordability crisis is going to disappear come Q3 of next year.
Okay. Think so.
Like you're going to start to see change, but not in California, not in Illinois, not in New York, not in all those states, and not in Washington or Oregon. You're going to see it significant. They're going to come down a little bit because a rising tide lifts all ships. But if you live in some red hot states, no pun intended, you're going to see it so fast because you're already seeing it. I went to the gas pump and I went, dude. Am I really paying $2.75 a gallon for 93 right now at Sam's Club? No way. Yes way. That's Texas, baby. Texas. And Oklahoma's cheaper. Go figure. California.
So are you agreeing that affordability is the number one topic for you too, or was it something different?
I think hands down for me, wealth. Two things. To me, it's 50-50. Number one, I think affordability is a massive crisis because even wealthy people that are making $500,000, they feel it now. Look, if you would have heard me giving a talk in front of my office, Len, in 2021, 2022, I would have told you, I said, look, if you're making $500,000, you're not going to feel it. I could tell you right now with confidence, if you make $500,000 a year, you feel it now. You feel today. Not maybe if you're in Texas, but if you're in California, you feel it. Bad. Massively. I just don't look, if you're making over 250, I don't even know why you're still in California.
Sometimes I wonder.
Unless you don't make any income and it's all corporate income outside of California, which is probably the only reason why you'd stay in California anyways, is own nothing in California, operate nothing in California, make nothing. But California is very smart and they will find a way to tax you. They will find a way. What was that thing they were trying to tax sports income made in different states if you lived in that state or some crazy BS like that? So yeah, but ultimately, look, I understand still, wealth is wealth. And still 90% of people don't make six figures, right? Even today, I think that is. I don't know. It might be closer to like 86 or something like that. It might be different now. I think because more people make six figures today than they ever have.
But it doesn't mean the same now.
Yeah, it doesn't mean the same, right? Because it's all relative, right?
Because I'll give you a case in point about just the devaluation of the dollar. I bought silver at about it was like $21 an ounce. I just checked. Silver spot price right now is $72.93. So
when did you buy it at 21 an ounce?
It was about 7 years ago.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? That's just absolutely insane. And gold.
I bought kilos. I bought kilos of silver and I bought ounces of gold. Yeah, man. And gold is like over $4,000. I bought it at $1,300.
I always knew you were some kind of street lord, Len. I knew it, dude.
Hey, man, all of you finance guys say, hey, man, keep about 5% of your portfolio in hard assets as a hedge against inflation. So I was like, you know what? Let me go buy some gold and silver. And I just
precious metals, baby.
And it's, I have it in a special place. And it's not gold futures. It's gold. It's actual gold coins and silver kilos, man.
When Costco was selling them, they were so popular. Costco would sell out of them. They started limiting you. They had the Troy ounces of gold, the ones from Swiss, the Swiss 1 ounce bars. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I went to. I remember there was a guy who did a series of stories about just how the dollar devalued. I can't remember his name right now, but he promoted this particular company, and because they actually hold the asset or they can ship it to you, and so I decided to go with them. I don't remember their name anymore, but yeah, so I wanted to make sure that I got it as close to spot price as possible, and I made arrangements to have it shipped over to me. And, I went through the whole process. Instead of getting, a coin, I wanted to make sure that I got, actual, like I said, kilos of silver so I could get as close to spot as possible. But my point in saying all of that is not to talk about my portfolio per se, but just to talk about the devaluation of this fiat currency, which is making affordability much more difficult these days. And so it's so important, Chris. I know you would preach this to your people too, which is, it's really important to have diversified types of assets, because if you hold your money in cash, it's just an eroding entity because of the fact that the valuation of that fiat currency is just going to continue to go down.
Yeah, anything cash or anything fiat currency, And it's so funny because now you see all these big Wall Street guys that were so opposed to Bitcoin are like, oh, don't be surprised when Bitcoin hits 150, it's 150,000 per coin. It's going to happen. I mean, there's just absolutely no doubt about it.
It's inevitable.
I mean, and it's such a great time right now to get in any of that stuff, especially fractionals and futures and stuff like that. So why not? Why not? You know, but yeah, I think affordability is going to continue to be an issue. I don't see it ever going away. It's just going to get worse. But the good side to it that I think is that there's so many different ways to generate wealth and create wealth today that I think is just infinite. I mean, it gets easy to make wealth today. It's just easy to get involved in something, go on YouTube, do something. So yeah, I think that you're going to see the continuing of wealth creation, but in a lot of different ways as we start to see new economies be built and new sectors be built, which I think it's very exciting. But at the same time, you're going to see old sectors that are going to die, just like it's sad to see the shopping mall die. But who knows? You might see the shopping mall come back in a massive way because people still want to be together, you know, and they don't want to just kind of be all online and be virtual, you know. So like, for example, all these young kids that are driving cars like their mid-20s or early 30s, they all love cars from the mid-2000s and all the way up to like 2006, 15, 2011, because they all have manual buttons in them. And they're like, oh my God, it's so cool, like switchgear and everything, right? So you never know. And all of a sudden, V8 cars are extremely popular because they're not being made anymore. Nobody wants an electric car. Nobody wants an electric car. Nobody wants an electric car. Nobody. Yeah, you do, but you don't. You want an electric car. Like, for example, I want an electric truck just because I don't own a truck, and that's the only vehicle I want to put in electric. I want an electric Rivian truck for my farm. That's it. But otherwise, I want a V8 or a nice straight turbo 6-cylinder because it feels cool when you drive it. After a minute when you're in that car, and you're just like, dude, this just feels so clinical. But at the same time, I think that's exactly why Tesla's going to blow up too, because the need for that, robo-taxis, all that stuff, autonomous stuff. So
yeah, man, I think there's so many opportunities out there for people who have the ambition and the work ethic and the ability to be uncomfortable for a while to change the trajectory of their life. But I think it's also important for people to be self-aware, because some people aren't entrepreneurial, and that's okay. Just look at the trajectory of where we're going because of technology and the infiltration of AI, and just don't be behind that, because you can have a job today and it's gone tomorrow and you never saw it coming, just because change is happening so quickly. And I'm interested to switch gears with you, unless you want to talk about that. I wanted to get your thoughts about just health, because over the course of the year we both talked about health, but I really wanted to give you the space to close out with the whole wealth part before we switch over, if you had anything else.
No, I mean, to me, I think it's crypto I think is the future for a lot of stuff, and you're seeing how that's going to take over. And
not only that, change. But smart contracts and the whole smart, yes,
everything. People want transparency, people want openness,
yes.
But people are so sick and tired of the current system, because again, this goes back to what we were talking about when we opened up. Like this, nobody trusts the system anymore. And when you see this crap that's going on in not just Minnesota, right, or
yes.
Michigan, it's happening in California. Massively, dude. Massive. It's not just small, it's massive.
Yep.
It's unheard of how massive it is. So people are going, dude, this, and then topple that with the fact that, dude, I went to school and my degree's worthless, but I still got to pay the debt back. But Harvard is growing tax-free, bigger than they ever have been. And then the guy that didn't go to college, who's barely making it, has to pay the damn debt.
Right. Yeah. Right.
What country are we in? What the hell, dude? So yeah, I think that you're going to continue to see finance is going to continue to be a big issue. But I think you're also going to start to see things change, because it's going to be change. Look, change happens violently. It happens all the time. The Industrial Revolution was very violent, right? I mean, so things are going to happen. We're in that moment right now. We're living in that moment right now where we're seeing revolutions happen. not in a sense that we're like, like a civil revolution or something like that, our country, but a revolution in finance, business, technology, all of that stuff, because we're changing. So in regards to health, that I think this is probably the most exciting area of the year that I think I've been more excited about anything has just been in the areas of health, the advancement in health. And I'll let you start with that, where you're at, Len, unless you got a question for me, but where are you at with that as far as what's the most important things for health for you?
Okay, so I'm going to differentiate, because the most important to me versus the biggest are two different. And so the biggest story of 2025 in my mind is the whole weight loss revolution with Ozempic and all of these GLP-1, drugs that are being used. And now we're looking at the possibility of going from an injectable to a pill. I think that's going to change the trajectory of so many people's health. And what I don't know is what that's going to look like long term, because, while there may not be short-term side effects, if I'm a drug company and I test humans for a year or 2 years before I release the drug, and I don't see necessarily any health impacts, I'm going to say, hey, you might have some dry mouth, some diarrhea, a couple of, aches and pains here, but I can make billions upon billions of dollars. So let's go ahead and get this FDA approved and let's get this moving along. But who's to say that in 5, 10, 15 years, the impact of that drug on one's body doesn't end up hurting people long term? I don't know what that's going to be, but when I look at just the fact that people are relying on a pill or an injection to lose weight, I always have concerns about that, because that makes me think about, it's cool to use tools to enhance your efficiency, but when it comes down to the body, I think the body always keeps score, man. And I don't think there's any shortcuts to eating a good nutritious meal and working out and keeping your body active, because your muscles need stress, your joints need work. And if you bypass that process, my concern is that as people get into their 60s and 70s, which is where my line of work starts to come in, I'd prefer more people to be healthy, to have fewer people for us to serve, because that means that people are overall more healthy. I'm concerned about the fact that in their 60s and 70s, while they've been artificially staying good looking from a vanity standpoint, that their muscles and their joints aren't getting a sufficient enough workout to maintain their longevity and vitality. So to me, that's the biggest story health-wise of 2025. The most important story of 2025 is the potential breakthrough where one can reduce Alzheimer's by reducing the amount of plaque that accumulates in the arteries and in the brain, which could then significantly reduce the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia. And so those things are really of significant importance, because right now we have an aging population. It's the oldest that this number of people have ever been in the history of America. And because of that, I think that we need to find ways to make sure that we can help people to live longer and live more healthily. And that is a significant potential breakthrough. So those are the two for me, the biggest story and the most important story.
I think you're spot on both of those. I'm going to give you a little bit more of a nefarious standpoint maybe on it,
okay,
but also at the same time a good one. And maybe this will track a little bit with you. I think the most exciting thing for me, which is going on in the health space, is the access to information. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that we'd have the level of access to information we have today had administrations not changed. Simply because we knew the way contrary information was was censored under previous administrations, and that's not a conspiracy. That's fact. We know it. I mean, Zuckerberg even told us that. But I think what's interesting here is that you can actually get the correct information, and you're starting to see these studies now, these long-term, massive controlled studies that are coming out that are completely debunking what has been a lie for 30 years, as far as I can remember, which is the food pyramid, the FDA food pyramid, which is absolutely a lie. You should just turn the FDA pyramid upside down and then it's correct. Like, it's so stupid. Did baby boomers invent the FDA food pyramid that we use? Or is it?
I think it was around before them.
Was it around before them? Len, was it around before them? Baby boomers. You baby boomers, you.
You are a mess, man.
I will be, I swear I will, I don't know what I'll do if it says they invented it. I don't know. I might go into cardiac arrest, maybe. I have no idea. Who knows? Does it say or no?
It says
Anyways.
1992. It was definitely before then. It says the first pyramid was published in Sweden in 1974.
No. The U.S. pyramid was, if it was invented in the 92s, then it was baby boomers, hands down. There's no denying.
No, but it was before that, because I remember when I was in school, the whole food pyramid. So keep going, Chris. I'll find it.
When you look at this, I think the most exciting thing is access to information, because now you're looking at this, and I think what's happening now is you're creating two sides now of the spectrum, and what you're getting now is you're getting people who are not in shape, and you're getting people who are in shape, and it is becoming not at least this is how I feel. It feels to me, what I see is, it's not about fat shaming anymore. It's about like, if you're in shape now, it's not just like, you know how normally when you see someone who's in shape, you're like, oh, you admire that person. It's a natural reaction that you admire that person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you see somebody, think about it. If they lost weight and they look better, you go, oh, you lost weight, right? Mm-hmm. If you see somebody and they gained weight, you don't go, oh, you gained weight, you're glowing, right? But what you do say is, when you turn around, you go, bro, Len, did you see Larry? Larry got fat, bro. Right? That's what you do. Right? Mm-hmm, and if Larry got good, when you got away, we would go, damn, bro, do you see what Larry doing? Larry's freaking looking good, man. What the heck's he been doing, dude? Mm-hmm. He's got to be dating or something. What the hell? Right? That's what it is. So today, though, what it is, I think, is what you're seeing now with the access to information is not just like, oh, you see someone, oh, they're in shape. That's cool, right? You see them and go, oh, right on, bro. You're in the club now. You're in the club, because now it's like, it's trendy, or it's not trendy, but it's like, there's no excuse for it anymore. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, there's no excuse. It's almost like, dude, if you're not in shape, like, what's wrong with you? Like, bro, what the heck's wrong with you? And it's not about not being inclusive or anything like that. And to anyone out there that might watch this one day and go, oh, Chris, that's not nice to do. Dude, I was 225 pounds at one point in my life. I weigh $170 now, because I was a fat, you know what? Because I ate too much sugar, and I switched it. And I changed it up, and I got in shape. And then I was a skinny fat person too for a long time in my life. And if you don't know what that is, it means where you're skinny, but you're still fat. And then there's a difference between fat, skinny, fit, and athletic. And let me tell you, most women want a fit or an athletic guy, not a fat guy or a skinny fat guy. Just saying, guys out there. But it takes work. But I think that's one of the things, and I think what that is causing ultimately is you're starting to see people that are now eating because they want it, not because because they need it, not because they want it. So you're starting to, and that's why you're seeing declines in fast food and all this stuff, because people are now have access to information. They're going, dude, I don't need to eat a double quarter pounder with cheese and a supersized French fry and a Diet Coke and a breakfast burrito from McDonald's anymore. I can get up and make a blueberry, blackberry, Greek yogurt protein shake with 6 raw eggs, down that in the morning, go to work, be lean and cut and mean, have a salad for lunch, come home and eat a big fat steak and be happy. and not have to buy fast food and spend less doing it, because we've reached that point right now where you can go to Whole Foods and get a grass-fed steak and feed yourself on that for 3 days cheaper than it would to feed yourself on the shit fast food that people think is more economic to buy now, because we've reached that point now today in both affordability crisis, but also in health, where it's now easy to eat. I think it's easier to eat clean and eat healthy today now than it was a couple years ago, because you have access to the information. But not only that, now you're starting to see it. Just go to Costco and you'll see the amount of organic, non-GMO, grass-fed 100%, all these things, glyphosate-free. So I think for me, that's the biggest thing, is that we're starting to now come out of this fog of war, that whether it was created by people before the baby boomers or it was the baby boomers, sorry, margarine is not healthy for you. Country crock is not good. It's not. Butter is good. Salted, grass-fed, fat butter is good for you. It's good, right? And that's what I think is exciting about health. And you said dementia, which is huge, because my grandfather passed away, which is ultimately type 3 diabetes, or form of it. Look, get on a ketogenic diet. That's one of the most exciting things for me, is that you can understand how to eat for your body type now. Not just, I need to get on a diet. Like, you can understand and go to a holistic doctor and not buy the BS that Big Pharma wants to sell you, and get a holistic report for your body and your blood type and what all the metrics, and say, you know what? Len Cooper, you do good on a paleo Mediterranean diet. Right? Len, you do good. Like, for example, my brother-in-law, you know him, Gene. He's a beast, by the way. Guy looks like he's ready to go on Mr. Olympian, right? And he was vegan, but he couldn't understand why he had such bad eczema and such bad mental disease and stress and all that stuff. Well, guess what? He can't, as soon as he cuts out vegetables and he cuts out like greens and only eats a little bit, it's only 10% of his diet, all that goes away. Goes to the doctor, gets a lab report. He can't handle the oxalates like you and I might be able to. I can eat vegetables all day long and it does nothing to me. Just like some people can't eat dairy and some people can eat dairy. It's the same exact thing. So that to me is the most exciting thing. Besides the fact that you can now legally take methylene blue, it's awesome. Thanks, RFK.
All right, so let's do this. Let's switch gears, because we've talked about the number one topic and our opinion. Now, considering the fact that we're not journalists and did deep levels of investigation, that's not really our role. We're here to talk about what's important to most people that would watch a channel like this, who's concerned about their health, who's concerned about their wealth, and who really want to get differing perspectives about current events, and not just have one type of point of view shoved down their throat. We want people to be critical. So I want to do some rapid fire with you, man. And then, you can feel free to ask me questions.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it, man. So my first question to you is regarding the Epstein files. Do you think in 2026 that they will release the Epstein files in such a way where the people feel that it's that the government's being transparent and that people will be held accountable for their actions? Go.
No, unfortunately, this is never going to go away. It's always going to be dirty. It's always going to be a rough spot. It's going to be just like O.J. Simpson. There's always going to be those people who are mad about it and people that are happy about it, and vice versa. You're never going to reach that point where it just goes, it's cool. Never. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It just will not happen. I don't think it will. Len, what do you think about AI? Is there going to be an AI level out? And what I mean by that is that are we going to start looking at AI this year and go, are we going to start going, okay, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable? Because, like, for example, you can't replace an artist's song for copyright rights, but yet you can have AI write you a book. So are we going to have some level out in AI this year?
No. I don't believe so, because I think greed is going to be at the forefront, and the idea of the wild, wild west, until somebody ends up getting hurt or killed, nothing's going to happen. The only time I think something would happen is if some AI voice impersonated somebody's mom or kid or something like that, and somebody ended up getting murdered and it became a high profile case, and it happened too many times for it to happen. But until then, I don't believe so. I believe that the US is in an arms race with China to become the world's most dominant leader in AI. And the only thing that legislation would do is to slow down that progress. And from the perspective of the technological oligarchs, slowing down the race to AI means that we would end up losing to China, because China could take the technology and use it to hurt us. And so because of that reality, I think they're going to continue full speed ahead. So nope, I don't think so at all.
Interesting.
So, question for you. Do you think voters in 2026 will punish the people in power right now, considering all of the challenges that are happening economically and all of the shenanigans that have happened with this current administration?
I think that if the gauntlet doesn't get laid down on the fleecing that's happening and the abuse, the open, blatant abuse and the weirdness, you're gonna have something crazy happen. Something's gonna happen, because I just think you're at a point right now where people are so fed up. Because again, look, people can tolerate the bullshit if they've got money in their bank accounts, but the fact that they can't do that, they're going to be irate. And the fact that a lot of these problems come from people taking their tax money or their money and spending it on God knows what crazy shit. Yeah, I think that there's going to be, the gauntlet is going to be laid down next year, and a lot of heads are going to roll. I think so. I really, really do think so. And I think it's not because our politicians are all of a sudden, or the people that are in charge of punishing those people all of a sudden are going to wake up and have this great, virtue of, oh, yay, ding, right? Like the harp's going to get played or something. It's going to be because the exposure is happening at the grassroots level, where everyday people are going out and going, bro, what the heck? What are they going to do? Kill everybody? Look, you can't assassinate everybody. So,
facts.
I don't think so. Do you think that the year is going to be 2026? Do you think that it's going to be a smooth year, a rough year? And do you think that there might be some bloodshed possibly in American soil next year?
And when you say bloodshed, are you talking about through violent, massive protests, or what kind of bloodshed?
Yeah, like that. Okay. Because let's say for example, this all does come out, right? And Tim Walz did knew about this, but nothing happens. Do you think that as a result, or let's say, something crazy does happen, and there is another mass shooting, or another political figure gets, something to that effect. Could that possibly happen where we're at right now?
I think it's definitely a distinct possibility. If you were to ask me to bet money on if it were to happen, I would say no, because I agree with you that the cover up is so pervasive that it's almost like, if we question whether something is real or not, it gives us something to talk about. It gives us something to bicker about. It gives us something to complain about, but we really, really don't know. And so the not knowing still means that there's a possibility that our biggest fears are not actually realized. And so because of that, I think the government is going to continue covering up everything. So from the Epstein files to the Kirk assassination to the fraud and abuse that's happening on the highest levels. I think that Newsom being found for fraud and Waltz being found for fraud, I don't think that's really a big deal from the standpoint of, okay, we kind of know that politicians do commit financial fraud, but if you start to see pedophilia and people that we've trusted get exposed, then I think that would happen, but I don't think it's ever going to come out. So the short answer to your question is, it's a possibility that could happen, but I'm going to say nope, it's not going to, because of all the cover-ups that will continue happening. So, question for you. Do you think that the United States is going to go to war against Venezuela?
I don't think there's going to be a war, but I think there's going to be a conflict. Yeah, I just think that there's too much invested in it, and I've researched a little bit about the relationship, obviously, with Venezuela and going back and how, look, Venezuela was the wealthiest South American country in the world. I mean, obviously the world, right? It's just such poor choice of words, but it obviously was the wealthiest country at one point. And what happened was Hugo Chavez comes in, and he comes into power at a time where, he looks good because oil prices rose. And look, Venezuela discovered they had oil. They discovered it was great. All of a sudden they use that to advantage. Hugo Chavez uses that to his advantage. Oil prices boom under his leadership. A new industry emerges. He spreads the wealth like any true socialist does. He sees the writing on the wall. Economic shifts. What was good, what goes up must come down, and then all of a sudden, he gives it over to Nicolas Maduro, and oil prices tank. And the big facade that Hugo Chavez was blew up, unfortunately, underneath Maduro. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is exactly what happens in California. Newsom leaves, and the California dream, the liberal dream that was Gavin Newsom, implodes as soon as he leaves under the next leader. And that, whether it's a Democratic leader or not, I would not want to be the next person to be the governor of California after Governor Newsom. There's just absolutely no way. I mean, like if you're coming in and being governor of Texas or Florida after Abbott or DeSantis, you're like, whoo, baby. We can only go up from here. I mean, shoot, dude, this thing's already cranking, dude. All you got to do is just leave everything alone, right? Tighten up some procedural overseeing here a little bit here and there. Cut a little bit more government. Free up a little bit more tax revenue to the streets and local businesses. Game on. That's all there is to it. Make sure things stay safe. So, yeah, I think that that's the direction we're headed in for that. I don't see any other way possible at this point.
Okay. Sounds good.
We'll see for that. Do you think that you're going to see a lot of consolidation continuing to happen? Obviously, with Netflix trying to acquire. Do you think that in 2026 you're going to start to see continue to see government consolidation, private consolidation, trimming of the fats and the belts, and austerity in almost every single way? Do you think that's going to continue or even get even crazier in 2026?
I think that more companies will continue to consolidate because I think that when you had all of these years of zero or very low interest rates, that chicken is coming home to roost. And as these interest rates start to reforecast the debt burden on those companies, that they're going to fall short of their financial obligations. And because of that, the only way they're going to really be able to get out of their financial situation is to find another company to consolidate. And I think that's when the Metas of the world, the Teslas of the world, the large, well-run companies see other companies being offered at pennies on the dollar, and they can either do one of two things. They can purchase them to consolidate or purchase them to eliminate their competition. And so I believe that more consolidation is going to take place just because of the financial burdens that are happening because of the shift in finances. So speaking of finances, do you think that everyday Americans will actually feel better in 2026 because the certain policies that are in place right now is going to have a lagging effect? Or do you think that a year from now, at the end of this year, when we come back and reflect going into 2027, that Americans financially will be worse off?
So I think that there's a couple things going on here with that. And obviously, if we do have a conflict with Venezuela, which I do believe we will have, it's going to be over oil because Venezuela does have that dirty crude oil that no one else wants to refine, but U.S. can refine it. Mm-hmm. And I think that geopolitically, it makes sense for us to have Venezuela back in I think there's a lot of good cooperative that could be done between America and Venezuela. I'm for it. I just think Maduro needs to leave. And they need to, look, he's been democratically unelected a couple times and the guy won't leave. So for those who like socialism and communism, that's what that looks like in the beginning stages of it. Just so you know, that's what that looks like. Yeah, I definitely think that's going to happen for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. There's just no doubt about it. No doubt about it for me. I definitely think that we're headed in that direction, and I think it's a good thing. Actually, I think it's actually really is a good thing, Len. I do. What about will we see another high-profile assassination?
That's so funny. I was going to ask you a very similar question, which I'll ask.
And you might be thinking what I'm thinking here. But go ahead.
Okay, so I believe that there will be another high-profile assassination because the echo chambers are getting louder and louder, and the divergence of trust and between people and government is getting wider and wider. And I think that when you have an erosion of trust, when you have the increase of different social media channels where people who are like-minded can just go down different rabbit holes and just, because the news has been very notorious about presenting their point of view only. And again, you can find stories to substantiate what it is that you're trying to claim. But true journalism should be about balance. And I think that because the way in which we report information gets more views because you feed red meat to your base, that it just gets people more and more outraged to the fact that they're going to say, you know what, I need to take matters in my own hands. So I definitely believe there will be definitely attempts of high profile figures, but I think unfortunately there's probably going to be one or two that end up dying. I hate to say that, but I believe it.
I think that it's going to I think that it will happen under certain circumstances, and I think that it won't happen under other circumstances. And here's what I mean by that. It will happen if I'm wrong, and it won't happen if I'm right, and that's what I'm thinking. And if I'm right, and what I'm thinking is that it's going to probably be rough for Q1 and Q2. Right? Like you were saying, is things going to get rougher? Is there a trickle-down effect? Is there a lag effect? There's always lag effects. And I don't think you're going to see an assassination if by Q3, Q4 of next year, I say Q3. I say by Q3 of next year is when we're going to start to see the daylight of the policy effect change that Trump's doing behind the scenes, whether the stuff we see and we don't see. And if that happens, then I don't think you're going to see any type of violence or assassination stuff. But I think is that it becomes summertime. If stuff doesn't start to trend in the right direction, you're going to start to see those voices come up, and then that's when that's when you could potentially see an assassination. So
yeah,
if it doesn't get better by summertime,
right, and I'm wrong, brother. I really, really do. Because here's the thing, man. I don't care if I disagree with 100% of your views. I don't wish ill upon your health. I don't wish you to die.
Nobody wants to see that. And that's always the American principle. The American foundational principle is we can have discourse and we can disagree, and we're happy about that, right? We're happy about that. And I never forget a story. And I was in high school, my power mechanics teacher, old school guy, probably was born in God knows when, before World War II. And he goes, it used to be back in the day, if you had beef with a guy, you go out behind the parking lot, whoever won is won, and then the next day you'd see that guy, or afterwards say, hey, you know what, you kicked my ass, good job, and then both you guys would go and have a beer together, and that was it. Nowadays you can't even disagree with somebody and they're up in your grill about it. So I definitely it's interesting that we're thinking that way. But I have one last question for you, Len.
Okay. No, I wanted to ask you real quick. I wanted to ask you because it's really along the same lines. Do you think Tyler Robinson is going to be convicted for the assassination of Charlie Kirk? And it's a two-part question. Do you think there are other nefarious actors that are involved? And if so, will they be brought to justice? What do you think about that whole situation?
Why do you have to ask this question? Because it's such a loaded question. I don't want to answer this. I don't want to say all the things that I want to say because I think it's rotten from the top to the bottom. I think everyone knows what happened. I don't want to say everybody, but we all know what happened. I want to believe the narrative. But I just can't believe that he wasn't a mark. And this has been planned for years. I'm sorry, but I know that. It's just weird.
Okay, I'll let it stand right there. I won't push.
I just think it's very strange. It's very weird. It's too scripted. There's not enough things that make sense to me. And I think he's going to get. I mean, think about it this way: how weird is the trial for the United Health CEO murder suspect? What's his name? Luigi. It's weird.
Yeah, Maggione.
That one's weird too. It's the same weird kind of feel, isn't it? Doesn't it kind of just feel weirdly?
Not to me, man, because I mean, there were eyewitnesses of the guy, and I think it's a little bit more of a tight case. While there are other extenuating circumstances, he had a manifesto of the ills of healthcare and stuff like that. So in my mind, the only similarity is that, I think he actually did it. I don't believe that Tyler Robinson was the main actor. I think Mangione was a sole actor, and I think he planned it because he felt personally some type of ill towards healthcare, and he wanted to do something about it. And I think there's other stuff, man, too many other unexplained circumstances around the whole Charlie Kirk assassination. And I just hope that whatever the truth is, that we will, as a country, come to learn the truth. Because again, it's a common theme. It's just that whole idea that people in power can take action without any type of accountability, and we get fed up with that over time. So I just hope that we figure out what happened. So what's your last question?
My last question, I think we're starting to see that, and that goes back to it. My last question is do you think we will see a roundtable discussion between Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly, and Tucker Carlson in 2026?
I do. I absolutely do. And I would hope.
And then I have a follow-up question to that.
Okay. So I do. I believe that because they all are, if you think about it, they all have something interesting in common. They were once a part of one platform and let go from it, and then established their own personal platform and exponentially exploded from that. And I think because their voice is now more unfiltered and it's a lot more widely distributed, I think them coming together is not only a good financial move, but I think it's also a good politically strategic move. And I think what they'll do is they will label this under some type of conservative movement or conservative manifesto to create change from a grassroots perspective. I think they will come together and coalesce under that.
Who would be somebody that's my follow-up question is that who would be a good fourth person to go with them, or who do you think they would rally their support around or promote?
I think the fourth person they would want to have with them, considering only because of what happened in September, would be Erica Kirk. And here's why. Not because of who she is, but because of the people that she represents. She represents the young Gen Z, left behind, Christian, conservative movement of millions and millions of people who creates a large voting bloc for the next 2028 candidate. So I think as opposed to having a democratically led president, I think they'll get together, bring her to get involved so they can all rally the vote.
Does Erica Kirk run for president in 2028?
Absolutely not.
What if she does?
No, bro, she has no shot. Her credibility is already on shaky ground as it is, man. Like, even people from TPUSA are starting to look side eyes and say, I feel for her and her loss, but something just isn't right. And something in most of our gut is telling us there's more there than meets the eye. I don't know what it is yet, but something's not right. And because of that, I don't think she has a shot.
I don't think so either. Well, Len, it's been an exciting year.
Yes,
I can't wait to see what happens. We are going to hold each other accountable to what happened in our predictions for 2025 and what happens. Of course, the big one is still out there, whether or not Trump's presidency is a resounding success or a resounding failure. I just can't wait to see you wear I Heart Trump shirt or something like that. Whatever merch you're going to wear. Like Trump, you're going to wear the headline, Trump raises GDP by 100% in 2027. And you're going to go, dang it, Chris.
Hey,
what am I going to do?
The good thing is at least we have 3 more years.
The tariffs save United States economic policy. Hey, you're going to wear a shirt that says Trump 2028. I'm gonna figure out what you're gonna wear. You can't, because you have nobody.
Crap. No. I'm talking about how you fell for the okie doke with regard to your president's success. I'm just saying, but that remains to be seen. I hope he's either a resounding success or an absolute failure. I don't want there to be anything in between.
And I agree. I don't want there to be anything in between.
And I would prefer that he's a resounding success.
Well, to everyone out there,
the only thing we can say is we will see.
We shall see. We shall see. Everybody had a Merry Christmas. Everybody have a Merry Christmas. If you haven't celebrated that yet, have a Happy New Year. Stay safe. And we'll see you next year. Thank you, Len. Have an amazing one. And we'll see how things shift. And now, that's being said, if you like the content, subscribe, comment. We love to hear from you. And again, at the end of the day, we want to have a great, clean dialogue. And then obviously at the end of the day, have a beer and be friends. And that's really what it's all about. You don't have to agree all the time, but have a conversation and have a dialogue and a discourse about it. That's really what it's about. So everybody have a great, happy New Year again. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time, Len. Thank you.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.